Just like there's a long list of liberal celebrities who swear they'll go if a Republican is elected, and no one ever does. Miley Cyrus once said, "I am moving if Trump is my president. I don't say things I don't mean." Here she is looking miserable, having to endure America at the Grammys last Sunday. I guess she flew back from Tajikistan.
Bill Maher is calling out woke celebrities, and his take is absolutely hilarious. The comedian and talk show host has a knack for skewering the contradictions of Hollywood. And this time, he's focusing on the stars who loudly promote certain ideals while conveniently avoiding any personal consequences. Watching him dismantle the self-righteousness of fame is both entertaining and strangely satisfying.
In 2016, Eddie Griffin said, "If Trump wins, I'm moving to Africa." Apparently very slowly, because in Trump's 4 years, he only got as far as Van Nuys. George Lopez once said that if Trump won, he won't have to worry about immigration. We'll all go back.
Picture this: the election night chaos of 2016. Celebrities were swearing on live television that if Trump took the White House, they were packing their bags and gone for good. It wasn't whispers, it was dramatic promises. Miley Cyrus announced, "If Trump is my president, I'm moving. I don't say things I don't mean." Eddie Griffin boldly declared he'd head straight to Africa. George Lopez joked that if Trump won, no one would have to worry about immigration, because everyone like him would be leaving anyway. These weren't just throwaway lines. They were delivered with full conviction, on stage, in interviews, to millions of fans. Fast forward, Trump becomes president. 4 years pass. Where did all those celebrities go? Nowhere. Miley didn't move across the ocean. She was right there at the Grammys, looking glamorous under the lights. Griffin didn't make it to Africa. He barely made it across Los Angeles. George Lopez? Still living the high life in the United States. Not one of them followed through. The promises to flee turned out to be empty theatrics, more about stirring emotions than taking real action. And that's where the hypocrisy becomes hard to ignore. These stars wanted to look bold, like they were sacrificing everything for their beliefs, when in reality, they never planned to give up the comfort, fame, and fortune America gives them. By the way, before we continue, don't forget to like this video and subscribe to the channel. It really helps us grow and share more intriguing stories. Now, let's continue. What makes this even more fascinating is how these celebrities position themselves as moral leaders. They stand on award show stages, give emotional interviews, and post long speeches online about justice, equality, and change.
Confused by this political message. Vote for me because I hate it here. Now, does America have big problems? Yes, I've often cited the America sucks list. Things like being 54th in the world in infant mortality behind Cuba, 19th in literacy behind Russia, 72nd in female representation in government behind Iraq. A lot of work to do here. And is it possible for a country to lose itself so much that leaving it is justified? Yes, but we're not there yet, not by a long shot, and we don't need quitters. We need people who will stay and fix it.
But here's the catch. While they tell everyone else how to live, they remain safely tucked inside their mansions, sipping champagne, shielded from the consequences of the very problems they preach about. It's not just the broken promises to leave America, it's the bigger contradiction. They paint themselves as warriors for the people. But their lives are nothing like the people's. They don't face eviction notices, they don't worry about how to pay medical bills, and they're not stressed about putting food on the table. Yet somehow, they feel entitled to lecture millions of Americans about sacrifice. That's why when the spotlight turns on them, the hypocrisy looks so glaring. It's easy to rage about politics when you're surrounded by private chefs and bodyguards. It's easy to say this country is terrible while filming from a $100 million studio.
Maybe the problem isn't that America isn't worth defending. Maybe the problem is that lots of people today are entitled whiners who have no perspective and no idea how good they have it. 59% of self-identified liberals say there have been times when they considered leaving America for good, like after NBC canceled The West Wing.
And the more they exaggerate, the funnier it gets. Because deep down, everyone watching knows the truth. They will never walk away from the fame, the wealth, and the luxury this country provides. The whole act starts to look less like activism and more like a performance staged for applause. And that's where the laughter kicks in. It's Hollywood drama at its finest, but this time, the audience isn't clapping, they're rolling their eyes. And then comes the sharper edge when the spotlight shifts from celebrity hypocrisy to the bigger stage of global reality. While stars whine about America being unbearable, the comparisons to actual authoritarian regimes hit like a brick. Think about it. In Russia, just mentioning the war in Ukraine can earn you 15 years behind bars. In North Korea, families risk their lives just for a chance to escape. In Uganda, the president publicly called on people to stone gay citizens. Yet here in America, celebrities call the country oppressive because their favorite movie star didn't get an Oscar nomination. The absurdity is impossible to ignore. People living in brutal dictatorships dream of the freedoms Americans take for granted, while celebrities act like missing out on awards is equal to political persecution. And this is exactly why calling out that contradiction feels so satisfying. It shows how shallow the outrage has become. It's like they want to play both victim and hero at the same time. They cry about how unfair life is in the United States, but conveniently ignore the fact that they're able to speak openly, march freely, and broadcast their opinions to millions without fear of being thrown in prison.
I don't get it. You want so badly for every immigrant to come to this country and experience the good life, but somehow it's so terrible you want to leave? And I see conservatives in Texas are talking secession again. They have 2 bumper stickers in that state. America, love it or leave it, and we're leaving it.
It's not bravery, it's indulgence. And the more you think about it, the more it looks like a parody of activism, where hardship is defined by a bad headline or a missed trophy, not by survival or freedom. The contradictions don't stop there. Take the political slogans we've all heard during campaign season, "Vote for me because I hate it here." Think about how absurd that sounds. Imagine running for the highest office in the land, telling the world that the country you want to lead is a hopeless mess. It's not a rallying cry, it's self-sabotage dressed up as passion. And yet, some politicians and celebrities shout it proudly, expecting applause. Yes, America has problems. The statistics are there: infant mortality rates worse than Cuba, literacy behind Russia, female representation in government lower than Iraq.
Long list of liberal celebrities who swear they'll go if a Republican is elected, and no one ever does. Miley Cyrus once said, "I am moving if Trump is my president. I don't say things I don't mean." Here she is looking miserable, having to endure America at the Grammys last Sunday.
Nobody's denying there's work to be done, but saying, "I hate it here" as a campaign pitch, that's not inspiring leadership. That's whining. It's the equivalent of standing on stage with a megaphone and admitting you're already defeated. Here's the point: complaining isn't the same as fixing. If someone genuinely believes in change, then stay, roll up your sleeves, and do the work. People respect action, not empty speeches. What's dangerous is when influential voices normalize the idea of abandoning ship at the first sign of struggle. That doesn't build a stronger nation, it feeds into hopelessness. And while celebrities make headlines with their threats to leave, ordinary Americans don't have that luxury. They can't just jump to another country when things get tough. They're here, they're working, and they expect leaders to fight for solutions, not just shout insults into microphones. That's why the idea of "fix it, don't flee" hits so hard. Walking away when things get tough doesn't make you brave, it makes you a quitter. And when famous people stand on giant stages, wagging their fingers at the rest of us, the truth is crystal clear. They're not sacrificing anything. They're enjoying every perk this country has to offer while demanding that others do the heavy lifting. It's easy to say, America is broken from a villa in Beverly Hills. But what does that even mean if you're not out there trying to solve real problems? Complaining doesn't patch a single pothole. A tweet doesn't lower the cost of rent. A tearful acceptance speech doesn't change healthcare. Without effort, sacrifice, or commitment, those words are just noise floating in the air. And here's the twist. Despite all the dramatic complaining, America is still one of the greatest nations in the world. Imperfect? Of course. But compared to so many places, it's still the land where people risk everything just to step foot here. That's what makes the whining sound so hollow. If progress is truly the goal, then it doesn't come from endless blame shifting or waving a protest sign on Instagram. It comes from people ready to get their hands dirty, ready to face challenges, ready to take responsibility instead of pushing it onto someone else.
Flew back from Tajikistan. In 2016, Eddie Griffin said, if Trump wins, I'm moving to Africa. Apparently very slowly, because in Trump's 4 years, he only got as far as Van Nuys. George Lopez once said that if Trump won, he won't have to worry about immigration. We'll all go back. George Lopez still here. And it doesn't look like the migrant traffic is going back.
That's the kind of grit that keeps a country alive, not empty threats about leaving when the going gets tough. And here's where the story takes an even sharper turn. The problem isn't that America is impossible to live in, it's that too many people have become entitled whiners with no perspective on how good they actually have it. Think about this. Surveys show nearly 60% of self-identified liberals admitted they've seriously considered leaving the United States for good. Not because of war, famine, or dictatorship, but because of things like a canceled TV show or the outcome of an election. When Trump was elected, a wave of dramatic declarations swept across the country. Celebrities and everyday people alike swore they'd pack up and move to Canada. They treated it like some bold act of protest. But when the cameras turned off, guess what happened? Almost no one left. Canada didn't see a flood of angry American refugees. Life went on, and the loudest voices were still right where they started complaining on Twitter from the comfort of their couches. It doesn't stop there. Some people have even threatened to leave because the country didn't embrace every trendy ideology they pushed, no matter how unrealistic. Instead of working to improve things, they fantasize about escape. It's like watching someone throw a tantrum in a mansion because the Wi-Fi glitched for a few minutes. And that's the point. Real patriotism isn't about waving goodbye every time you don't get your way.
Then there's all the TikToks telling Americans things like,
I think the new American dream is to leave.
I'm 18 years old and I escaped America.
Yeah, you don't have to escape America. That wall we're always debating isn't to keep you in.
It's about staying, facing the problems head-on, and doing the work to make the country stronger. The contradictions get even stranger when you look at the mixed messages coming from both celebrities and politicians. On one hand, they scream that America must open its doors wider, welcome everyone, and show the world how generous this nation is. But in the very next breath, they turn around and say, "This country is so awful, I can't even stay here anymore." Which one is it? If America is such a nightmare, why beg others to come here? And if it truly is the land of opportunity, why threaten to abandon it every election cycle? That's not conviction, that's hypocrisy. It's a game of image, where outrage sells better than honesty. Look closer at those who yell the loudest. They're not packing their bags. They're still living behind gates, chauffeured around in luxury cars, enjoying everything they claim to despise. The truth is, they love America for the platform it gives them, the fame, the spotlight, the fortune. But to keep that spotlight, they play the role of the rebel, the critic, the fighter against the system. And yet, the system they bash is the same one that makes them rich and adored. Their activism isn't about building a better country, it's about building a better image. That's why their words feel so hollow. Because when it comes time to act, they don't risk a thing. They just keep cashing in while preaching from the safety of their stage. The reality is, despite all the noise, these celebrities never leave.
New Republic just ran a story about the vulnerable minorities who want to flee America, including the author, a gay man trapped in the dystopian homophobic hellscape that is New York City. I wonder if he knows that there are 66 countries where just being gay is a crime. Cute story in the news last month. Burundi's president called on his citizens to stone gay people, and not in the good way. Wow, suddenly the don't say gay law doesn't sound all that bad.
Miley Cyrus still walks the red carpets. George Lopez is still cracking jokes in the U.S. Eddie Griffin didn't move to Africa, he barely moved across town. They threatened to run, but deep down, they know exactly what they'd lose. No other country offers the same spotlight, the same fortune, the same power to shape culture like America does. That's why they stay, even while shouting about how much they hate it. Because the truth is, it was never about real conviction. It was about appearances. Grand statements like, "I'll leave the country if Trump wins," weren't meant to be kept. They were meant to stir fans, grab headlines, and show off how brave they were. It's performance activism loud enough to trend, empty enough to forget. And when the headlines fade, when the award shows end, they're still here, sipping cocktails in California, enjoying the wealth and freedom they claim doesn't exist. It's not courage, it's theater. The only thing they're loyal to is their image, not their word. That's why it's hard to take their lectures seriously. How can someone preach about sacrifice while living in $20 million estates? How can they claim to fight injustice when they won't even keep their own promises? It's all smoke and mirrors, and the audience is catching on. And this is exactly why their voices ring so hollow compared to the struggles of ordinary Americans. Regular people aren't worried about private jets or award shows. They're worried about the mortgage payment that keeps them awake at night, the rent that eats half their paycheck, and whether there's enough money left to put food on the table. For everyday families, politics isn't a performance. It's survival.
And Uganda? Oh, they don't just give you a ticket for parking in the rear. You can get the penalty for it. In China, they have the penalty for almost 50 crimes. And in 13 countries, atheism is punishable by death, and 61 imposed restrictions on women's clothing, so bring a scarf. According to Amnesty International, paramilitary groups killed the government's critics in Argentina, Brazil, Colombia, Venezuela, and arbitrary detentions are widespread in Cuba, Ecuador, El Salvador, Nicaragua. If you're wondering how that's just like no cash bail, it's not.
Meanwhile, celebrities live in a completely different universe. They sit in gated mansions with every comfort imaginable. If life in America ever became inconvenient, they could buy a new villa in Spain or a penthouse in London without blinking. Their version of hardship is deciding which luxury resort to vacation at. So when they get on stage and preach about what the rest of us should do, it feels fake because it is. That's why so many people laugh when celebrities claim they'd leave the country or insist they're leading some noble fight. They don't have skin in the game. They aren't facing the daily grind that millions of Americans do. Their activism is like a costume they put on when the cameras are rolling, only to toss it aside once the applause ends. And in the middle of all this, something even stranger has started happening. Young people on TikTok making videos about escaping America, as if they're prisoners breaking free from a dictatorship. But the reality couldn't be further from the truth. Those TikToks are almost comical. Teenagers filming themselves saying things like, "The new American dream is to leave. I escaped America at 18. Escaped? From what exactly? There's no barbed wire keeping anyone in. There are no guards standing watch at the border. The wall that gets debated so endlessly isn't designed to trap people inside, it's to keep others from flooding in. The idea that America is some kind of prison state is pure fantasy. And here's the irony that makes it almost unbearable. While these kids post dramatic videos about breaking free, people all over the world are literally risking their lives just to get into the United States. Refugees cross deserts, oceans, and borders because they know the opportunities here are unmatched. Yet, the ones who already live in this freedom act like they're trapped in misery. Think about it. No one is fighting to sneak into North Korea. No one is lining up to start a new life in Venezuela. But America? It's still the #1 destination for dreamers, workers, and families chasing a better future. That fact alone destroys the Escape America narrative. And that's why comparing this country to oppressive regimes is so ridiculous. Calling America a nightmare while living comfortably in it isn't just out of touch, it's insulting to the millions of people worldwide who would give everything for the chance to live here. It gets even more absurd when you look at how activists describe America as if it's the worst place on earth, especially for vulnerable groups. One story claimed that minorities, including a gay man in New York City, felt so trapped in a dystopian, homophobic hellscape that they wanted to flee. But let's compare that with reality. There are more than 60 countries where being gay is still a crime. In Uganda, leaders have openly called for gay people to be stoned. In 13 countries, atheism is punishable by death. In dozens more, women can be jailed or worse for what they wear in public. So when someone says America is too dangerous to live in, it's impossible not to see the disconnect. Because in the US, LGBTQ+ people can openly march in parades, build careers in media, hold political office, and speak freely without fear of execution. It's not perfect discrimination still exists, but compared to much of the world, America is a sanctuary. And it doesn't stop with LGBTQ+ rights. Amnesty International reports widespread government crackdowns in places like Argentina, Brazil, Cuba, Venezuela, and Nicaragua. People there risk arrest or worse just for criticizing their leaders. Meanwhile, in America, celebrities can trash politicians on national TV without a single consequence. That's why the constant talk about leaving feels so empty. Because when you stack America against the rest of the world, it's still one of the safest, freest, and most empowering places to live. And here's the final layer of the story. For all the talk of exile, the truth is, even if these people did move, they wouldn't find paradise. Relocating to Canada, Japan, or the UK isn't a magical solution. At best, they'd be trading the issues they complain about here for a new set of problems. Their smaller homes, higher costs, stricter rules. It's the classic case of thinking the grass is greener, only to realize it's just a different shade of brown. One story makes it crystal clear. It took only 4 days in Amsterdam to understand that while it's a beautiful city, it's not the dreamland it looks like from afar. The buildings are cramped, life is expensive, and suddenly the flaws of America don't seem so unbearable. That's the reality of leaving. There is no perfect place waiting on the other side. Meanwhile, back in the US, celebrities keep using protests, flag burnings, or viral stunts to grab attention. But those actions don't solve a single problem. They don't lower rent, they don't fix broken systems, and they don't help the people struggling every day. What they do is feed egos and rack up likes on social media. And that's the truth cutting through all the noise. Real change doesn't come from empty drama or fake threats to leave. It comes from facing problems directly. America, flaws and all, is still the country people fight to enter, not escape. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe to this channel. Also, drop your thoughts in the comments. See you on the next one!